In this video, we'll describe 5 weapons that were tremendously effective, and whose impact on the human body was horrific. Each weapon on this list will be progressively more disturbing, with their effect on the human body becoming increasingly brutal. As we get to the last 2, you will be truly horrified. Let's begin. The Sawback bayonets, far from ordinary knives, had a serrated edge similar to a saw's blade. These unique weapons were introduced by the German military in the First World War, designed as versatile tools for cutting wood and clearing brush, offering soldiers a multifunctional asset beyond mere combat. Yet, when plunged into combat and penetrating human flesh, they inflicted brutal wounds, far more grievous than a clean cut, complicating treatment and increasing mortality. Their intimidating design spawned dark myths, with tales spreading of their serrated wounds pulling intestines out upon retraction. The Allies during World War I viewed these bayonets with dread, associating them with unnecessary cruelty. Captured soldiers bearing them often faced dire consequences, including torture or execution, due to the belief in their savagery. After much political and propaganda pressure, they were excluded from usage. The trench shotgun. The next weapon to become a legend in the trenches was the trench shotgun, whose efficiency wasn't exaggerated like the Sawback bayonets. This powerful firearm played a unique role in the war, offering soldiers a significant advantage during the brutal close-quarters trench warfare. The trench shotgun, most notably the Winchester Model 1897, was introduced by the American forces in World War I. Designed for close combat, this pump-action shotgun was capable of firing rapidly, allowing soldiers to engage multiple enemies quickly. Its use in the tight and winding trenches made it an invaluable tool for clearing enemy positions. The key to the trench shotgun's effectiveness lay in its ammunition. Unlike rifles that fired a single bullet, shotguns discharged multiple pellets, spreading out to hit several targets or a single target multiple times. This made the trench shotgun exceptionally lethal at short ranges, ideal for the kind of sudden, close-quarters encounters common in trench raids. The pure lead balls used in trench shotgun pellets were more dangerous than full metal jacket, FMJ rifle bullets, because they could deform upon impact, creating larger, more irregular wounds that were harder to treat and more likely to cause severe trauma and infection. This new tool on the battlefield did not go unnoticed by the enemy. German forces were particularly alarmed by the weapon's devastating effectiveness. They protested its use, claiming it violated the laws of war due to its brutal efficiency and wounds it created. However, these protests were not formally recognized, and the trench shotgun remained in use. Soldiers captured with a trench shotgun, or even with ammunition, for it often experienced terrible treatment, mutilations, and were killed by German soldiers as retribution for using this fearsome weapon. Thus, soldiers who used these shotguns faced an additional pressure, knowing what awaited them if they were captured. It happened that soldiers, realizing they would be captured, would throw away, bury, and try to rid themselves of any evidence that they had used the shotgun. Canister shells. These were one of the battlefield's most devastating forms of artillery ammunition, with terrifying effectiveness in close-range combat. Canister shells date back to the era of smoothbore cannons, where their initial purpose was to basically turn these cannons into giant shotguns. Throughout history, they have been continuously upgraded and are still used in modern times. A canister shell is essentially a metal cylinder filled with numerous small projectiles, such as iron or lead balls, or in modern times metal darts. When fired, the casing bursts open, scattering these projectiles in a wide spread, much like the effect of a shotgun blast but on a much larger scale. This makes canister shot particularly lethal against massed troops, capable of cutting down dozens of enemy soldiers in a single shot. The fear induced by canister shells comes from their brutal efficiency in close combat. Throughout history, from the Napoleonic Wars to the American Civil War and beyond, canister shells were used extensively to devastating effect. Modern variants, such as the beehive rounds used in tanks and artillery, saw use during the Vietnam War. Here are 2 real-life examples recalled by soldiers who fought in the Vietnam War, showcasing the use of beehive rounds in close-quarters combat. In the first scenario, an American tank caught in an ambush faced infantry climbing on it, attempting to breach it to reach the crew. The tank commander, facing imminent danger, radioed the tank behind him with a request to scratch his back. This code signaled for friendly forces to fire machine guns directly at his tank to eliminate the enemy infantry. The commander of the supporting tank had a better idea and fired a beehive round at the attacked tank. He knew that while the round wouldn't significantly harm the tank itself, it would effectively clear the infantry threat, which it successfully did. The second scenario unfolded when an artillery battery in Vietnam came under attack, leading to the crew of the first cannon being overrun. Believing all members of the first crew to be killed, the crew of a second cannon lowered their gun and fired beehive rounds at the first cannon's position. One surviving crew member, who had avoided enemy detection by pretending to be dead, was peppered with the darts from the friendly fire, but managed to survive. Being hit by canister or beehive shots was like facing a storm of metal. Imagine standing one moment and the next, feeling as though a wave of stinging bees made of metal has engulfed you. The wounds from these shots were numerous and varied. Some were superficial, others were deep, piercing the flesh to the inside organs. The randomness of the injuries added to the horror. One soldier might walk away with minor injuries, while another could be critically wounded or killed. The sheer number of injuries made initial treatment overwhelming, with medics often having to prioritize which wounds to address first. Each wound could potentially lead to infection, requiring careful cleaning and surgery to remove embedded shrapnel. Today, canister and beehive shots are still used for protecting against close-up threats, showing how old war tactics can still be used for today's battles. White phosphorus. White phosphorus bombs are designed to burn fiercely and can be used to create smoke screens, illuminate battlefields, or destroy enemy equipment and fortifications. However, when it comes into contact with the human body, it causes severe and brutal injuries. When white phosphorus is exposed to air, it starts to burn intensely. When it lands on skin, it continues to burn until it's completely consumed or cut off from oxygen. This allows it to burn through flesh all the way to the bone. There have been instances during the treatment of wounded soldiers where phosphorus reignites upon contact with oxygen, even causing injuries to medical personnel. On the battlefield, soldiers have had to resort to using a knife to remove pieces of phosphorus that keep burning through the skin. White phosphorus burns at a temperature of approximately 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, making its effects particularly severe. Therefore, it's crucial to continuously douse the affected area with water to slow down and contain the burning caused by white phosphorus. The pain is described as unbearable, and the victims might also inhale burning smoke, damaging their lungs and respiratory system. White phosphorus was first used in World War I and has since been employed in numerous conflicts. Its use in densely populated areas or against personnel, however, has been a subject of controversy due to the severe injuries it can cause. Napalm. Napalm is also an incendiary weapon which would be remembered for its brutal efficiency. It is made from a gel-like mixture of a gelling agent and gasoline, or a similar fuel. When ignited, napalm sticks to surfaces and burns at extremely high temperatures, making it a devastating tool of warfare. Napalm was first used in World War II, but its use became much more widespread during the Vietnam War. In Vietnam, napalm bombs were dropped from aircraft onto enemy positions, jungle hideouts, and unfortunately, sometimes even civilian areas. The goal was to clear large swaths of land, destroy supplies, and demoralize the enemy. However, the impact went far beyond tactical advantages. The temperature of napalm, similar as white phosphorus, can reach about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, causing catastrophic burns upon contact. For humans, the effects are horrific and brutal. Napalm sticks to the skin and can burn through to the bone. Surviving an attack often meant enduring excruciating pain and a high likelihood of severe, disfiguring scars. Immediate cooling and precise, often surgical removal of the napalm gel were critical, yet the physical and emotional scars would last a lifetime. There were tragic instances of blue-on-blue incidents where napalm was mistakenly dropped on American forces or too close to their positions, leading to friendly fire casualties. Soldiers and medics who served in Vietnam have provided harrowing accounts of napalm's effects. They recounted the overwhelming smell of burnt flesh, gasoline, and melted rubber that was unbearable. The victims' uniforms and gear had melted into their skin, making it impossible to remove their clothing without causing further agony. Only under anesthesia could medical personnel attempt to treat their wounds. For the enemy that got direct hit, this was even worse. Its use, especially in civilian-populated areas, has sparked debates on the ethics of warfare and the need for strict international regulations on incendiary weapons. The stories and images of its victims have become powerful symbols of war's horror. For a deeper understanding of the impact of incendiary weapons like white phosphorus and napalm, I encourage you to do a Google search for images of the wounds they cause. I couldn't include these images in my video to avoid restrictions, but seeing them firsthand truly shows the severity of these weapons.